Good day, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Under the Cupola. I'm Leon Gaumond, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being the town manager here for the town of Weston. And today we are joined by Katie Campbell, who is the executive director of the Golden Ball Tavern. For those of you who might be familiar with this program, having seen all of my previous episodes, you know that typically I talk to department heads or employees of the town who helped to make Weston a very special place. But I'm here to tell you it's not all about the town employees. It's also about people who make the community great for in other ways than just working for the town. And I'm here with one of those people because in the town of Weston, we have a very unique and special organization. It's the Golden Ball Tavern, and I've asked Katie Campbell to come with me today and talk a little bit about what the Golden Ball Tavern means, what it means to Weston, what they do, and I think they have a very special year coming up, and I'm hoping that she might tell me and you a little bit more about that. So, Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, tell me a little bit about the Golden Ball Tavern and what you folks do.
Sure. So the Golden Ball Tavern, we're located at 662 Boston Post Road, is a tavern that was built in 1768 by Isaac Jones. Isaac Jones is a third-generation American. His family started out in Watertown, and he ended up living in Weston and owning a store in Weston near what is now Warren Avenue. Okay. In the 1750s, he applied to be an innkeeper, and he built the Golden Ball Tavern, as I said, in 1758, and it was an inn and a tavern, so people could stay there and they could eat there. But taverns, as you know, at that time served a number of purposes. First of all, in Massachusetts at that time, you had to have a tavern in your town. It was the law. And the reason was those taverns served as the places where you got your mail and where the newspaper was kept and where municipal meetings were held. So traveling judges would come and hear cases in taverns. It's where the dances were held. It's where basically it became a center for the town. So Weston at that time had 9. But the Golden Ball was located right on the Post Road, which was, as you know, the main road from Boston to New York, the highway, if you will, of the 1700s. So it was located in a great place. What makes the Golden Ball Tavern a little bit different is that Isaac Jones was a loyalist and a known loyalist. So that meant that he supported the king and what was going on in England. Around the 1770s, when things got a little hot and there was a faction of people that weren't happy with the king and the way that the colonies were being treated, Isaac found himself at odds with his neighbors. He was not unusual in that regard, but Isaac and his family, and it was 6 generations who lived in that house before we became a museum in 1963, had to sort of navigate that. Isaac was very prominent in the town. He held a number of positions, including selectman. He was the toll keeper. I don't think he was the tax collector, but he held many, many prominent positions in town. Now, when the 1775, 1776, the hotbed years, it became an issue for him, and he sort of laid low. But people were not happy with him. The towns of Acton and Sudbury were very angry that he was a loyalist who was continuing to do business as a loyalist. The Golden Ball Tavern was attacked. Shortly after the Boston Tea Party, we had what was called the Weston Tea Party, because Isaac Jones was serving tea, and tea was a no-no, but Isaac felt that he could serve tea because it wasn't British tea, it was Dutch tea, but the Patriots didn't care. So this is a long answer to your question, but...
No, this is fascinating, yeah.
Isaac and his family somehow managed to navigate from the 1770s through to the 1963s unscathed. So we find that fascinating, and we're discovering why that is, why he was an anomaly, if you will, not forced out of his home like his cousin, Colonel Elijah Jones, who lives across next door to the First Parish Church. He was driven out of town, and his land and property was seized. But that never happened to Isaac. So the question is, why? What was it about Isaac that was so great? Now, we do know that Isaac must have taken the oath of allegiance at some point to allow him to stay, because then he was hauling munitions for the army during the revolution. So, but we have no proof of that because we can't find any written record that he did it. But we believe that he did. Yeah. So he was a loyalist who sort of saw the writing on the wall and became a patriot. Whether he truly believed it, we don't know. We'll never know. But that's the story of Isaac Jones.
Well, that's very interesting, and it's so amazing that this museum is here in Weston. Tell me about the museum, your hours and.
Sure. So the museum is currently open once a month. We're open on the second Sunday of every month from 1 to 3, and we have very talented docents who give tours. However, in 2025, we're hoping that we're going to be open once a week. So we are in the process of doing the analysis for that, but the hope is that we will start being open regularly. But we're also open, if anybody wants a tour, they can just call us and we can schedule a special tour if they're interested in it.
So tell me about 2025, because you're looking to open once a week. There must be a reason.
Yeah, so 2025 is the 250th anniversary of the spies at the Golden Ball. Ooh, spies. General Thomas Gage sent 2 spies, Ensign Henry de Bernier and Captain John Brown, to do some reconnaissance work, to look for places where the British could have encampments, to look for munitions, to basically map out, if you will, and I mean literally map out, draw sketches where where the British could travel to and from Worcester. So he sent them out in February of 1775, and the spies had a harrowing time. It was not a good time to be a British soldier, and a lot of people were suspicious of them, even though they were in disguise, so to speak, dressed as countrymen, wandering the roads and the backwoods on their way from Boston to Worcester. And they stayed at the Golden Ball Tavern. They stopped at the Golden Ball Tavern, and Isaac Jones offered them coffee or tea. And they said they knew where the innkeeper, where his politics lay, just by asking.
By offering the tea.
Right, by offering the tea, exactly. Yeah. And they ended up staying there 3 times. And one of the fascinating parts is the report that Ensign de Bernier wrote. The copy of it was left in the attic of the Golden Ball Tavern. The original is at the Mass Historical Society, but because they got that from, I guess, from General Gage's papers. But yeah, the spies actually stayed there. So 2025 is going to be a celebration of that story. Not necessarily a celebration of the British, but a celebration of the spies actually coming, what they did, who they saw. And then we'll have a special exhibit about spies in general, the British spies, the English spies, the double spies, the women spies, and also spycraft. How were spies effective? What were they using? Besides like secret codes, ciphers, there were things called masks, where they sent the letter in 2 pieces and one went on top of the other, and the cutout part showed the real message, as opposed to what would look like a traditional "Dear Mom, how are you? I'm fine" letter. Women played a key part and were often undersold as spies. They used to use things like hanging laundry in a certain way was a signal that they were giving to whatever side they were spying for, without being overt or risking anything written down. So things like that. And we're working actually also with the 4th graders in Weston Public Schools. who have a standard on encoding and decoding. So they'll get a chance to come in and do a little bit of spying or spycraft with us.
Well, that sounds exciting. Do you have a good relationship with like the Weston schools
We do.
and the general school districts?
Yes, we do. So every Weston kindergartner, third grader, or fifth grader comes to the Golden Ball every year.
Oh, wow.
So the ones that start as kindergartners obviously come 3 times. And that has evolved over a long period of time. That's not, new with me. And it's been in several different iterations. But what I find fascinating is that in an age when field trips are really not done anymore, Weston Public Schools says no way, and they make it happen. And they come and kids learn about the history that actually happened in their own backyard, which is just fascinating, not only to learn, but to watch, to see these kids learn things that they just didn't even think about. And remember, all of these kids grew up in the technological age. So they're like, well, we will ask them, well, what do you think the kids did in their spare time? Played on their iPad? No, they did not play on their iPad. If you got to play at all after you've done all your chores, these are the sort of things you might do. And this is what you might wear. You might have one shirt and one pair of pants, and you wore those until you outgrew them. And that's it. You didn't have a closet full of clothes, and you ate the same thing over and over and over again. So all these kind of things I think are fascinating. But yes, the school system works very closely with us. And I think it's pretty much the best part of our museum is the relationship with the Weston Public Schools, because we get to see these kids just learn so much and apply it to their immediate surrounds.
Katie, what made you get into this background? What is your background that made you get into this kind of work?
Well, that's a really good question, and I am not the poster child. I've been in a nonprofit for over 30 years, and I've done a lot of different kinds of nonprofit work. And my degree is in sociology and art and anthropology. Has nothing to do with anything. When I got out of school, I was working for British Petroleum. This was in Cleveland, Ohio. And I got hired by a botanical garden to bring business skills to a nonprofit. So this was right when, this was in the 90s, early 90s, when nonprofits were really struggling and they were trying to figure out, do we run them like businesses, like corporations, or do we run them like we beg, borrow, and steal for however we do our job? Anyway, I ended up working for a succession of nonprofits, both museums and horticultural institutions, including the Massachusetts Horticultural Society. I was commuting back and forth from Cleveland to Boston.
Wow.
And it's the fascination of learning new things. I learn something new every single day doing the work I do. There's a lot of stuff that I don't like so much, but the administration part is the price that I pay to learn all kinds of new things every day. And I think that's all you can ask for, right, for a kind of job. So I did come from the Sandwich Glass Museum, where I was for 13 years, to take this job, largely because I saw so much potential. Here was a beautiful museum with a vibrant volunteer base that really, really cared about what they had, and it just didn't have the access. And that's why I'm doing this, because I really want people to come and experience the Golden Ball Tavern. I want them to know what a treasure they have in their backyard. I want people to know the role that Weston played in the American Revolution. It just gets me jazzed. So
You mentioned the volunteer base, and I would imagine that a lot of the volunteers may be Weston residents. But tell me, if you're watching this and you're interested, how would you be a volunteer for Golden Ball?
We would take anybody who's interested in volunteering. You can just call us directly, or you can email us, and we will be happy to get you in touch with somebody that's in a group that you might be interested in. We have volunteers who are tour guides. We have volunteers who are docents with the schools. We have volunteers who do our annual barn sale, which is our 57th barn sale is in 2024, so that's a great thing. And we have people who help us, with collections. We have people who help us with facilities. Anything you're interested in, give us a call. We'll find a place for you, because volunteering is probably the greatest gift that you can give a nonprofit. And it gets harder and harder as time goes on. So we really cherish our volunteers.
And if you're going to be open every week in 2025,
yes,
you're going to need a lot of volunteers.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be 1 day a week to start, but still, it's a start, right?
Yeah, no, it's really exciting news that you're bringing, and I wish you nothing but the best for the upcoming year. And to the people at Weston Media, I want to thank you all for attending and watching this episode of Under the Cupola. And until next time, I will see you under the cupola.